December 19th, 1944. Bastogne is surrounded. More than 10,000 American soldiers of the 101st Airborne are trapped in a frozen Belgian town as German tanks and infantry close in from all sides, their artillery pounding day and night. Snowstorms choke the skies, grounding all air support and cutting off supply drops. Inside the perimeter, ammunition is rationed, medical supplies are nearly gone, and wounded men lie shivering in dark cellars, some freezing where they fall. Every hour tightens the noose. If relief does not arrive within 4 days, Bastogne will collapse, and with it the Allied front in the Ardennes. Hundreds of miles away, General Dwight D. Eisenhower stands over a map marked with red arrows stabbing deep into Allied lines, exhausted and silent as his staff debates the impossible. How long can they hold? He asks. The answer is grim: 3, maybe 4 days. Eisenhower feels the weight of thousands of lives pressing on his decision, the knowledge that failure would shatter morale and hand Germany a catastrophic victory. German commanders are confident, certain the Americans are finished, while inside Bastogne soldiers whisper promises of help they are not sure will come. As arguments rage about weather, fuel, and impassable roads, one name keeps returning to Eisenhower's mind: George S. Patton. Bold, aggressive, and dangerously fast. Turning Patton's army north through snow and enemy armor seems impossible, yet Eisenhower knows he has no other choice. The clock is ticking, the men in Bastogne are freezing, and one audacious decision will determine whether they live or die. December 19th, 1944. At the Supreme Headquarters Allied Expeditionary Force in Verdun, the room is quiet in a way that feels heavy, broken only by the rustle of maps and the low murmur of staff officers reading reports. Faces are drawn, eyes sunken from sleepless nights. On the table lies the Ardennes front, red arrows slicing through Allied lines, and at the center of it all Bastogne. Eisenhower stands with his hands on the edge of the map, studying the roads, the forests, the distances. The 101st Airborne is surrounded, outnumbered, low on ammunition, low on medical supplies, and cut off by snowstorms that have grounded every aircraft. Northern Allied units are tied down, Southern forces are facing the wrong direction, and winter has turned every road into ice. Eisenhower finally breaks the silence. How quickly can we mount a relief operation? The question hangs in the air. Generals exchange glances, mentally calculating miles, fuel consumption, frozen bridges, and enemy resistance. One speaks carefully. "Sir, realistically, it will take at least a week. Maybe longer." Eisenhower straightens, his voice firm but tight. "We don't have a week. 4 days. 4 days is all they have." The room grows colder. The idea of pivoting entire formations in the middle of a German offensive seems absurd. 3 divisions would have to turn north, fight through snow-choked roads, and advance nearly 100 miles under constant threat of counterattack. Supply lines would stretch to the breaking point. Trucks would freeze. Men would march and fight in sub-zero temperatures. It is, by every conventional measure, impossible. Then George S. Patton leans forward. His helmet rests on the table, his eyes sharp, almost impatient. "I can do it," he says calmly. A few officers look up in disbelief. Patton continues, outlining his plan with unnerving confidence. 3 divisions pivoting north, the Third Army turning on its axis, armor leading the way. The whispers begin: astonishment, doubt, disbelief. Eisenhower looks directly at him. "George, can you genuinely do this?" Patton does not hesitate. "Yes, sir. I've already prepared contingency plans." December 22nd, my 4th Armored Division attacks north. The room goes silent. Some officers exchange stunned looks. Others shake their heads slightly, as if daring themselves to believe it. Eisenhower feels both hope and fear tighten in his chest. If Patton fails, the 101st Airborne will be lost. Morale across the Allied front could collapse. The Germans would gain momentum they cannot afford to give them. Eisenhower makes it clear. If this fails, the consequences will be severe, strategically and personally. Patton nods, unflinching. "Understood, sir. But it will work." December 20th passes in a blur of orders, fuel requests, rerouted columns, and frantic preparation. December 21st, the snow still falls, roads remain frozen, and clocks keep ticking. Every hour brings Bastogne closer to collapse. Eisenhower watches reports come in, feeling the moral weight of the decision press harder with each update. He knows he has gambled everything on one man's audacity. December 22nd is marked on every map, every schedule, every mind in the room. 48 to 72 hours to reach Bastogne. The impossible has been ordered. The clock is ticking. Patton's army is about to move, and whether boldness can outrun winter and steel will decide the fate of thousands. The march north is about to begin. December 20th, 1944. Patton's Third Army begins to move, disengaging from its southern positions and pivoting nearly 90 degrees north in what many officers privately believe is madness. Tanks grind their gears on frozen roads, artillery pieces are hauled by exhausted men when engines fail, and infantry march through knee-deep snow as blizzards erase landmarks and turn highways into sheets of ice. The column stretches for miles, headlights dimmed, engines coughing in the cold. German patrols harass the flanks, artillery shells burst along choke points, and ambushes slow the advance hour by hour. Eisenhower receives reports constantly, distances covered, bridges repaired under fire, units delayed by snowdrifts taller than men. He studies the map late into the night, pencil tapping beside Bastogne, calculating how many hours the paratroopers can survive. If they fail, 10,000 men are lost, he thinks, and the Ardennes front may collapse. December 21st arrives with no break in the weather. Snow falls harder. Fuel trucks slide into ditches. Tanks must be pulled free by sheer manpower. Still, Patton presses forward, issuing orders with ruthless clarity, keep moving, no matter the cost. Eisenhower sends a terse message, maximum effort. The 101st cannot hold much longer. Patton's reply is immediate and confident, my men are moving. We will break through. Inside Bastogne, the 101st Airborne is barely holding on. Ammunition is critically low. Medical supplies are exhausted. Wounded soldiers lie on cellar floors, wrapped in blankets stiff with frost. German artillery hammers the town relentlessly, buildings collapsing under direct fire. When German envoys demand surrender, Brigadier General Anthony McAuliffe's response is short, defiant, and electric, nuts. A word that spreads through the lines and stiffens every spine. December 22nd. Patton launches his attack north as promised. Progress is measured in yards, not miles. German resistance is fierce, tanks burning along frozen fields, infantry fighting hand-to-hand in snow-filled forests. Eisenhower watches the clock, marking hours as reports arrive, a village taken, a road cleared, then another delay. The 4-day limit looms like a sentence. December 23rd brings a brief break in the clouds over Bastogne. Allied aircraft finally punch through, dropping desperately needed supplies by parachute, but it is not enough. The siege continues. Eisenhower allows himself no relief, drafting contingency messages he hopes he will never send, the moral weight of command heavy on his shoulders. December 24th, Christmas Eve. Patton's men fight through the night, faces blackened with soot, hands numb, determination carrying them forward when machines fail. Staff officers whisper in disbelief as the reports come in. He's actually doing it. Each mile gained is a victory over weather, terrain, and enemy fire. Inside Bastogne, paratroopers cling to their positions, counting bullets, listening to the distant thunder of guns and wondering if it is Patton, or the Germans closing in. December 25th dawns cold and gray. Eisenhower barely sleeps, eyes fixed on the map, Bastogne circled again and again. Time feels elastic, stretched to the breaking point. Every hour matters. Every delay could mean disaster. Messages fly back and forth. Hold on, Eisenhower urges. We are coming. Patton answers with relentless certainty, we're close. December 26th approaches, the final hours of the gamble. Tanks push through the last resistance. Infantry advance through shattered villages. The countdown ends here, success or catastrophe. The fate of 10,000 men hangs on the next few miles as the impossible march reaches its climax. December 26, 1944. The snow still falls, but now it feels different. Patton's Third Army is on the edge of Bastogne, men exhausted, faces hollowed by days of marching and fighting, engines coated in ice and mud. Tanks inch forward through narrow roads lined with shattered trees and burning wrecks. German positions resist desperately, firing from forests and crossroads, but American artillery roars back, blasting open the final barriers. Infantry advance through drifting snow, rifles tight in frozen hands, moving step by step toward a town that has become a symbol of survival. Every man knows what is at stake. Bastogne is only miles away. The march that many said was impossible is about to end. At approximately 4:50 p.m., lead elements of the 4th Armored Division break through the last German defenses and make contact with the battered perimeter of the 101st Airborne. The moment is almost surreal. Mud-streaked tank crews spot paratroopers emerging from foxholes and ruined buildings, faces gaunt, eyes wide. "You boys made it," one airborne soldier mutters, barely believing his own words. Another laughs, then chokes back tears. Hands clasp. Helmets tap together. For the first time in days, the men of Bastogne know they will live. Inside the town, word spreads rapidly: Patton is here. Relief washes through cellars and trenches like warmth after a long freeze. The siege is broken. The guns still fire, but the fear has lifted. Patton's officers move quickly, expanding the corridor, securing roads, pushing supplies forward. Patton himself remains composed, almost restrained, acknowledging the breakthrough with a nod. "Good work," he tells his commanders. "The men earned this." He knows what they have accomplished. 3 divisions turned 90 degrees, driven nearly 100 miles through blizzards and enemy fire, and arrived just in time. Hundreds of miles away, at Allied headquarters, the phone rings. Eisenhower's aide hands it over quietly. Eisenhower listens, then hears the words he has been waiting for. "George, we're through to Bastogne." For a long moment, Eisenhower says nothing. His shoulders sag slightly. The tension that has lived in him for days finally releases. His eyes glisten, though he quickly looks away. "Thank God," he murmurs. Then louder, steadier, "Well done." Patton's voice is gruff, controlled. "Just doing my job, Ike. The men did the real work." Eisenhower allows himself a rare smile. "No, George," he replies, his voice firm with emotion. "You moved an army 90 degrees in a blizzard. You saved 10,000 lives. That's why you're invaluable." Around Eisenhower, staff officers exchange stunned looks. Some shake their heads in disbelief. "He actually did it," one whispers. "Against all odds." Inside Bastogne, the 101st Airborne stands battered but unbroken. Their uniforms are torn, their faces hollow, but their pride is intact. They greet Patton's soldiers with gratitude and quiet respect, knowing that without them, the story would have ended very differently. Strategically, the breakthrough marks a turning point in the Battle of the Bulge. The German offensive has been checked. The Allies have regained momentum. What began as a desperate gamble has become a defining moment of operational brilliance and human courage. That night, Eisenhower retreats to his quarters and allows himself a private moment of reflection. In public, he will praise the success, commend the commanders, and move on to the next challenge. In private, he understands the truth. Patton has not only saved Bastogne, but stabilized the entire Ardennes front. As snow continues to fall outside, Eisenhower writes quietly, knowing history has just turned a page. What follows will shape the legacy of this decision, and the men who made it. December 27, 1944. The guns around Bastogne have not fallen silent, but the crisis has passed. In the quiet hours between briefings, Eisenhower sits alone, staring at the map that consumed him for days. Bastogne is no longer circled in red. The lines have stabilized. For the first time in a week, he allows himself to breathe. In his private notes, he writes of relief mixed with exhaustion, of the moral weight that comes with sending men into danger and the gratitude he feels when they survive it. The decision was a gamble, he reflects, but it was the only one that could be made. His thoughts return again and again to Patton, brilliant, relentless, difficult, and indispensable. Eisenhower knows that trusting Patton meant accepting risk, controversy, and unpredictability, but it also meant trusting in extraordinary capability when ordinary solutions would fail. In a personal letter to Patton dated December 27, he offers praise rarely spoken aloud. Thanks for the speed, the planning, and the execution that saved thousands of lives. Yet even in admiration, Eisenhower reminds him of restraint and responsibility, of the fine line between audacity and recklessness that only disciplined leadership can hold. Days later, on January 2, 1945, Eisenhower writes privately to his senior staff and allies, including reflections he will never share publicly. He acknowledges that the relief of Bastogne was more than a tactical success, it was a turning point in the Battle of the Bulge, the moment the German offensive lost its momentum and the Allies regained the initiative. Public statements will speak of coordination and collective effort. In private, Eisenhower admits the truth. Without Patton's rapid pivot of 3 divisions, without the logistical mastery and sheer force of will that drove men and machines through blizzards and enemy fire, the story might have ended in disaster. He understands the paradox of command more clearly than ever. Leadership is not about controlling every variable, but about knowing when to trust extraordinary talent and when to guide it carefully. The men of the 101st Airborne, battered but unbroken, become living proof of that decision. Their survival stands as a testament to courage under siege and to the human cost behind every arrow drawn on a map. Years later, in his memoirs, Eisenhower will reflect on Bastogne with clarity earned through distance. He will write that Patton's relief of the town vindicated his trust, demonstrated operational brilliance, and reminded him why gifted commanders must sometimes be managed, not constrained. He will remember the sleepless nights, the ticking clock, and the knowledge that 10,000 lives depended on one impossible order. History will record the victory, the dates, and the movements of armies. But Eisenhower will remember the quieter moments, the decisions made in silence, the weight of responsibility, and the courage of men who endured winter, fear, and fire. Bastogne becomes more than a battlefield, it becomes a lesson. That audacity, when guided by purpose, can change the course of war. That leadership is measured not only in success, but in the willingness to shoulder risk for others. And that behind every great victory lie human decisions, human courage, and the resolve to make the impossible possible.